Hello, I'm Robert Griffin, the Executive Minister here at the Sunshine Cathedral in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I want to thank you for joining us for worship via the internet today. And if you are ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, let me personally invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. We also invite you to join us on our Facebook group or follow us on Twitter. But for this moment, let's go inside and see what exciting worship opportunity lay in store for us.
Our first reading is from the Wisdom of Marley Matlin. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. In these human words, God's voice is heard. Our second reading is from the book of Genesis. God saw everything that he had been created, and indeed, it was all very good. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Our third reading is a reading from the Psalter. By divine will the heavens were made, and all their host by the breath of life. God gathered the waters of the sea as in a bottle, and put the deeps in storehouses. Let all the earth be in awe of the source of life. Let all the inhabitants of the world revere the one power. For God desired, and it came to be. God affirmed, and it stood firm. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
For the past few months, I've begun taking a walk every morning, except for Sunday mornings, because I'm here. Regardless, I do it fairly early in the morning to beat the heat. But even just after dawn, it is still quite warm. We live in South Florida. I began doing this because I really wanted to move beyond my very sedentary life, and I've always enjoyed being outside. But what started out as a way to get more exercise and to possibly lose a little weight has become a very meaningful spiritual practice for me. It's something I look forward to, and it's something that often brings me much joy and much peace. You see, in the very early morning hours, it is fairly quiet. The traffic in our little neighborhood is light, and so you can really pay attention to what is going on around you. I so enjoy looking at the sky. And I like watching for and listening for the birds and for other animals as they wake from their slumber. I can breathe in the early morning air and the fragrance of the flowers, and I can start my day in the most positive and in the most prayerful way. Yes, I could go to the gym and I could get on a treadmill and have a good walk, and I appreciate that as well, especially in this extreme heat and humidity. But there is a lot to be said for spending some time outside, waking with the earth in the morning and being very present to nature while living in this very busy urban environment. Throughout the month of September, Sunshine Cathedral will be presenting a sermon series called Creationtide. Every Sunday during this month, one of the Sunshine Cathedral clergy will preach on a topic that will show how we as a community of faith can and must connect with the wonder of creation for its preservation and care, as well as for our own benefit. Our lives are often so busy that we walk right past the wonder and the beauty that is all around us. There is so much that we need to do in order to keep our planet healthy and filled with life and filled with abundance. And one of the first things that we need to do, we need to pay attention to our earth, to our environment. Our readings this morning remind us that the earth was created by God, was created by the divine, and that everything that was created was called very good. But what has happened over time is that another verse from Genesis has been used to prove that humans have dominion over the earth and can use the earth and its resources in any way that they want. This theory was so prevalent throughout the early and middle part of the 20th century during the Industrial Revolution that our earth suffered immensely. Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 reads, "Then God said, 'Let us make humankind in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.'" What we need to remember is that dominion does not mean ownership or full, unrestricted use. I appreciate the translation from the Inclusive Bible, which calls us to be stewards or caretakers of all living things, rather than having dominion or authority over them. Of course, there are other reasons that our earth is in such a precarious position. Industry and greed have taken a huge toll on our planet. So often, if something needs to be done, if a building needs to be erected, or a new highway is to be built, our society will simply burn or bulldoze whatever is in the way. I really believe that so many people in our world have just lost the idea of what it means to preserve and to care for our planet. What we need to remember is that when we, as a faith community, speak about injustice, it isn't simply a matter of justice for human beings. If we focus solely on people, we have not gone far enough. We must create a more just world for all living things. As a people of God, a people of goodness, we are called to live a life of integrity and of decency, to do as little damage as possible and as much good as we can. We read in the Old Testament that God created a covenant with all living creatures. This divine covenant does not exclude or set aside those things that are not vital to human living. On the contrary, the human race is called to care for and to tend the gardens that provide richness and sustenance and nurture. And throughout the Gospels, we recognize that Jesus often used agrarian metaphors to make his point. The people of those ancient communities would have been intimately connected to the earth. So Jesus used images of soil and of seed, of sheep, of fields, and of trees. These stories, these parables that Jesus shared reminds us that God's kingdom, God's realm, is not some far off, totally unreachable place, but it is here, completely available to us in our everyday lives. Today, many of the messages we hear regarding environmentalism simply tell us that we must do better with regard to the care for our earth. And we hear it, and deep inside, we know it. But how it can be so difficult to integrate this knowledge into our daily lives. How do we move beyond the cliches and demonstrate divine love through our actions? What do we do when it is not war that is killing us and our earth, but instead it is our own progress? Think about littering for just a moment. It really is only just a little bit about pollution, and it is much more about a lack of respect and a diffusion of responsibility. It's a belief that my little bit of trash isn't going to hurt anything. How wrong. And our idea that we need as much oil as we can get shows that we really aren't all about saving the ozone layer and controlling our vehicles' emissions. Our huge thirst for oil is more about our own sense of entitlement. And I believe that we must move away from this idea of entitlement and be far more aware of how our privilege affects our world. And so I have several suggestions that may help us to become more aware and less complacent about our care of the earth. Number one, become an advocate or an activist for environmental issues. Activism by most people is seen as protesting against something, and at its best, it will raise awareness, while at its worst, there will be just incessant complaining about how bad everything is. But truly, being an agent of social change can be one of the most exciting and powerful journeys in life. You don't have to stand on a picket line or march in a protest, though there is a time and a place for that, and it can be very effective. But you can also write to or call your congressperson or senator or others in positions of authority about what it is that concerns you. You can contribute money or time to one of the many powerful groups that continually works towards making our planet safe for all living beings. Of course, there are a multitude of organizations that do this difficult work of aiding and assisting in the care of our planet. We can support and encourage them and others through a greater personal awareness of what is happening in our world. As we engage with justice issues, we are following the message of Jesus to transform our world. Number two, we can think about our own actions, how we do certain things, such as how we use our water, or how much paper we use or don't use, will show what kind of society we are. Did you know that only 23% of these single-use water bottles, 23% here in the United States, make it into a recycling bin? That's not many. And in 2009, over 500,000 trees were cut down every week to print the U.S. Sunday newspapers. Someone after the first service stopped me and says, well, those trees are grown just specifically for paper. They're still trees. They're still trees. Now, of course, with the advent of digital media, that number has quite possibly reduced. But think about the amount of junk mail you get, or the copy paper that is wasted each week in your office. If we can limit our water consumption if we can cut back on the amount of paper that we use, and if we can reduce air pollution by using public transportation or fuel-efficient vehicles, we will care for our Earth by being better stewards of the resources that are given to us. And number 3, and I think that this one may be the most important of all, and that is we need to connect daily with nature and with the earth. We need to get out of our houses, people. We need to connect with our planet. What I've noticed is that when I connect with something or someone, it develops a greater importance to me. And all of us will have a greater understanding and a greater respect for our earth if we feel ourselves to be a part of it. Nature provides us with an abundance of gifts for both our spiritual lives and our physical lives. Let's turn off the television. Let's step away from the computer or the video games. Instead of daily screen time, let's have daily green time. This creation we call Earth sustains each of us. If we do not care for it, or if we do not connect with it, we will lose so very much. Archbishop Desmond Tutu tells us, we must act now and wake up to our moral obligations. The poor and vulnerable are members of God's family and are the most severely affected by droughts, by high temperatures, the flooding of coastal cities, and more severe and unpredictable weather events resulting from climate change. We, who should have been responsible stewards preserving our vulnerable, fragile planet home, have been wantonly wasteful through our reckless consumerism, devouring irreplaceable natural resources. We need to be accountable to God's family. Once we start living in a way that is people-friendly to all God's family, we will also be environment-friendly. Chief Seattle stated, humankind has not woven the web of life. We are but one thread within it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. All things are bound together. All things connect. The Psalter tells us the earth and everything on it, the world and all who live in it, belong to the divine. And a Native American proverb reminds us, only when the last tree has died, and the last river has been poisoned, and the last fish has been caught, will we realize we cannot eat money. My friends, to care for our earth is the heart of stewardship and the heart of justice. To be kind, to be compassionate, to heal, to care for, and to love all require that we make our world a better place. To destroy is not an option. We must honor the divine by the justice work that we do and by making the care of our earth a much fuller aspect of our lives, always being focused on all living things. This is our calling today and always. Amen.
Thank you for joining us today here at the Sunshine Cathedral. If you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, we invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to make a donation to the Sunshine Cathedral, or if you'd like to find out other resources that the Cathedral has to offer, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Until the next time, we look forward to seeing you here at the Sunshine Cathedral.